Nancy Marsh.
Here.
Co-chair Vice Chair Patrick Tierney.
Here.
Paul Kulch.
He says he's not joining. He's driving back from somewhere right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Susanna Cantrell.
She said she may join later. She's had a work conflict.
Fran Pollard. Okay, Fran. Michelle Dragney. Yep. And Rick Barker.
Howdy.
Great. All right, Nancy, you're on.
Okay. Before we get started, our agenda has just our minutes, a presentation from Julia on San Mateo County's active transportation draft plan, and just a conversation with PAC on the pump track proposal that I think all of us but Pat saw last week, just to see if we have any advice we want to push forward to the board next week. And so before we get started on that, I just want to check if anybody has any comments they'd like to make for any items that are not on our agenda. I didn't see any.
Okay.
Okay, then the first thing is just approving the minutes from the September 14th meeting. Claudia, I had one little tiny quick thing, and it was just on the last item on the October fiber classes. It says we're held at Surfer West Park. I think it's technically Murata West.
Oh, you're right, Murata West.
Any other updates to the minutes?
It was nice to see the board took seriously some of our recommendations on the Burnham Park.
They have, they did the last, I think the last time, last November, the only thing they hadn't included in the first draft was the dog park, which is now in the second. Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
And so
that's 5-0.
3, 4, 5, 0.
Okay. Well, then we'd like to welcome back Julia Malmo-Laycock from San Mateo County, Active Transportation Plan. Julia, we did distribute your presentation, and so I don't think you need to take us through all the history, but we're anxious to see what your recommendations are and to give you whatever feedback you'd like.
Sure. Thanks very much, Nancy. Nice to see all of you again, albeit virtually. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I can put you in participation.
Okay, let me just share my screen.
Oh, she's managed it, Claudia.
Good, done.
All
Okay.
right. So can you all see my slide deck on the screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. So good evening to you all. As I said, nice to see you again via Zoom this time around. I appreciate you making space on the agenda for an update on the active transportation plan. For those of you that are tuning in that don't know me, my name is Julia Malmo-Laycock, and I work in the San Mateo County Office of Sustainability. So today I'd like to provide a brief overview of how the plan was developed. And Nancy, you made a good point that you all have learned about this plan in the past. And so I'll try to breeze through sort of that portion and then focus more on the draft plan itself. So we'll be reviewing the contents of the draft plan and then discuss next steps. And I'm happy to respond to any questions that you all may have about the plan and what's in it. So we started the planning process in the spring of 2019 with the Consultant Tool Design Group. And we have been liaising with our Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, as well as community advisory committees such as yourselves. And then we had an internal technical advisory committee comprised of representatives from our various county departments, like the Parks Department, I see that Nicholas is on here tonight. Hi, Nicholas. Planning and building and public works. And so it's really been a collaborative effort. The plan was developed through the 3 phases of work that are shown on this slide here. So we've completed the first 2 phases, which were focused on data collection and hearing from folks about what they wanted to see in the plan, and then developing a set of draft project recommendations based on that first phase of sort of fact finding that we did. And we're now nearing the end of our 3rd phase. We completed a draft of the actual plan, and that includes the implementation strategy that's listed there. So the starting point for the development of the plan really was hearing from community members about what they wanted to see in terms of walking and biking improvements in their neighborhoods, where it was sort of challenging to do so, where they like to walk and bike as it is. And our outreach really focused on reaching people where they are. So going to existing community events and community destinations. We held 9 pop-up events in that first phase of outreach, as well as 2 more formal workshops. And that was supplemented by online engagement that included a survey and an interactive map where folks could pinpoint the exact locations where they wanted to see improvements.
I see someone familiar there at the post office.
That's right. Yeah, your very own Michelle is featured in this slide deck. She's a star. So in that first phase, we reached over 450 people in person and online, countywide. In the second phase of outreach, we were trying to seek community feedback on the draft recommendations that were going to make up sort of the contents of the plan. And we held 5 pop-up events, one of which was at the post office in El Granada in late February, which seems like eons ago. And, you know, obviously in early March, we had to pivot to strictly online outreach for that second phase of outreach because of the pandemic. So we developed an online open house, another survey, an interactive map that charted the draft recommendations, and a little video. And we received more than 1,500 visits to that online open house website, and nearly 300 survey respondents and comments on the bike map. Which was great. And I'll say that throughout our community outreach, we've heard that community members are really excited to see improved crossings on places like Highway 1, neighborhood traffic calming, and dedicated bikeways. So bikeways that are separated from vehicle traffic, that are comfortable for people of all ages and abilities to use. So this plan is really an important step in creating a framework for us to start realizing those changes. I'll also add that we heard from you all the last time I joined your group's meeting about the need to acknowledge and consider the future Burnham Strip plans in our planning efforts, which we've incorporated into some of our maps, and then the need for additional bike racks at key destinations like Surfers Beach. So we've got a policy and support policies and programs in the plan that speak to that. So the second element that really informed the plan development was data analysis, which was intended to supplement what we heard from community members about barriers and areas for improvement. So we looked at the distribution of pedestrian and bicycle collisions as part of our collisions analysis. We analyzed gaps in the existing bikeway network, including existing facilities that are considered high stress and may not be appropriate given vehicle speeds and volumes. And we studied where there might be the greatest demand for bicycle and pedestrian facilities based on factors like land use mix and population and employment density. So here's a snippet of the draft plan cover. It's linked on the website. The interactive portion of the draft plan is no longer accessible online since we closed our public comment period on Monday, but you can still access the draft plan and the appendices and download those, to continue reviewing those if you like. So chapter 1 introduces our unincorporated county communities, as well as the plan's purpose and background on its development. And of course, the purpose of the plan, which I've shared with you all previously, is to define a community-driven vision for the future of walking and biking in our unincorporated communities. And crucially, to develop a framework for the implementation of projects, programs, and policies that really turn this vision into a reality. Chapter 2 includes our plan goals and objectives, and the goals are listed here and really focus on allowing folks to access key destinations in their communities on foot and by bike, improving safety for those that are walking and biking now and future users, providing equitable access to transportation mobility and transportation improvements, increasing the share of people walking and bicycling to reduce traffic congestion, which of course we see a lot of on the mid-coast, and also to reduce our GHG emissions, which is where the sort of Office of Sustainability comes in. And then finally, to create a flexible active transportation network that can adapt to changes in our land use and transportation systems, accommodating new mobility devices such as e-bikes and e-scooters. So the network of proposed recommendations is presented in chapter 3 for proposed bicycle recommendations, and they reflect what we've heard from community members as well as existing and planned facilities, and that includes facilities planned in Connect the Coast Side, the Caltrans District 4 bicycle and pedestrian plans, and so on. And we're really excited that the plan is recommending 66 miles of new and improved bikeways, which more than doubles our existing mileage. So this graphic depicts the types of facilities that are being recommended for bicycle improvements, ranging from bike routes, which are mostly consisting of signage, all the way to separated bike lanes and shared use paths. And the way we selected the bicycle facility for each roadway was by looking, first of all, at vehicle volumes and speeds, which tells us, how much separation is needed between cyclists and vehicles, and also considering constraints and trade-offs. Is there parking that might need to be removed? That's maybe more of a constraint on in some of our Bayside unincorporated communities. So in terms of pedestrian recommendations, those are presented in chapter 4, and they include both general pedestrian facility recommendations that are based on engineering best practice in terms of increasing safety and comfort for pedestrians. And then we also have 11 what are called pedestrian priority destinations that have specific recommendations for that location. And so to illustrate this, on this next slide is the list of those 11 locations, 3 of which are located in the Mid-Coast, downtown Montara, Princeton, and then El Granada. So as I mentioned earlier, the bikeway and pedestrian recommendations are also supplemented by support programs and policies, considering things like, additional bike racks and facilities for recreational cyclists. And these support programs and policies are grouped within the 4 topic areas listed here: planning, design, and management, education and encouragement, funding and implementation, and then additional policies and practices. And the way we came up with these support programs and policies was by looking at sort of assessing what we're doing now as a county to encourage walking and biking, and looking at sort of where there might be gaps in terms of best practices, and how we can really facilitate walking and biking in a meaningful way beyond just infrastructure improvements. Chapter 6 provides criteria to help us determine, as sort of a first step, which projects we can consider implementing in the short and long term. And these criteria respond to our plan goals of equity, safety, access, and mode share. This chapter also contains ballpark costs and potential funding sources for projects, which is really important for us to think about when to leverage different funding sources for different types of projects. And then it also reviews different implementation methods. One, really promising one is coordinating with road repaving projects that our Department of Public Works has already planned. How can we integrate our planned bicycle and pedestrian improvements within that existing planned work? So as I mentioned earlier, our phase 3 of outreach just wrapped up, and that was also taking place online. We had an interactive PDF of the plan on the website that folks could comment directly on, and then that allowed people to see what their neighbors and their friends were saying on the plan, which is something I thought was really neat. We also delivered presentations to community advisory councils and community organizations throughout the county. And then we hosted a couple of virtual pop-in meetings and a Facebook Live event to answer questions and hear comments from folks. Michelle joined us, I think, at one of those, which took place on a Saturday. And we learned that when it's a sunny day out on the mid-coast and a Saturday morning, that's not when you're going to see people showing up to a virtual meeting, which makes total sense and something we'll keep in mind for next time. So in terms of next steps, we're now in the process of revising the draft plan based on what we've heard from community members. And then we anticipate bringing a final plan to our Board of Supervisors in early 2021. And after, crossing fingers, the plan is approved by the Board of Supervisors. That's when kind of the real work for our team and for other agencies, other departments in the county really begins as we start to, apply for funding for the development and construction of the projects that are in the plan. And I'll just add that, as I said earlier, we did have to pivot online to online outreach in March for the sort of the latter half of our second phase of outreach and the entirety of our third phase of outreach. And we recognized that wasn't, by doing outreach online, we're not hearing from everybody in a way that we might have, been able to do in person. And so our office, and I know other county departments, are committed to continuing outreach in person when it's safe to do so, when it comes down to individual projects and refining those projects. So that's the end of the presentation. The following slides show kind of the detailed maps that you might be interested in seeing. I'm happy to run through those or respond to any questions that you all might have.
Julia, I would like to see the two that are within GCSD's territory, which I think was the Princeton and the El Granada maps.
Absolutely.
Detail, and I had a couple questions. Now I can remember
Sure.
what they were.
All right.
So that was Princeton.
This is Princeton.
It is a little hard to understand as you walk down the street in Princeton that you're actually on the coastal trail.
Right.
Without even a sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I had a question on Princeton. Let's see. Actually, my only question on Princeton.
Sorry, you could solve a lot of Princeton with paint. It just needs a lot of crosswalks. I mean, walking from my place on Vassar to the OPL or Seville or Mezzaluna or the brewery, there's no crosswalk at Capistrano and what is that? Prospect,
yeah.
Nuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or Prospect and Broadway, which is a funny intersection.
Prospect. Oh, and they just put the Jetty Wade in there. So that's going to be the new distillery. So hot off the press. And that should have it should be a 7-way crosswalk.
Yeah.
Michelle,
It's a
can
hard
you-
intersection.
I just want to make
I-
sure that I understand the intersection you're referring to.
Oh, okay. So the first thing, my comment was at Capistrano and Prospect,
Mhm,
Old
You're-
Princeton Landing is, and Mezzaluna Restaurant is, the
mhm.
Bill Restaurant.
Yeah,
um,
you've got it flagged with B, so that's a good.
Right.
B, yeah, right.
Okay.
And then I can't see the one that's at Prospect and Broadway. Maybe it's A. Is that A?
It's C.
No, Prospect. That's
A.
that's
Yeah.
Oh,
Princeton,
sorry.
Princeton
Oh,
Broadway. A. Yeah, at Prospect and Broadway. There you go.
got it.
And see that white building that's right there. That's
Mhm.
the Half Moon Bay Distiller. That was their showroom, and it's just been bought by some new people, and it's now the Jetty Wave, and they're doing a lot of outside stuff, and they bought the 2 vacant lots behind their place where they're going to do drive-in movies.
Nice.
Yay.
But that means there's going to be traffic,
Yeah.
especially on the weekend, because as they've really kind of done the place up well. They're going to have Mike McGrath Panisifio Pizza there. This, the wood smoke pizza guy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it is a place to think about another crosswalk just to get across Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
I know I ride my
Right.
bike down Prospect and have to make that right and left to go down Harvard, and it could be tricky.
and Julia, something that Half Moon Bay, and you can talk to John Dottie about this. They're using some paint literally before they put the vinyl down. They were doing a experimental parking delineation project where they made parking, paint little squares where a car could go. And what it did is it spaced the cars out a little bit, so there was fewer cars parking there. And it just accounted for the area. But they did it with paint, and it turned out it was a good idea because a lot of the neighbors were like, they don't like it. So we could put down some paint, within a week. And I know I asked Chris Hunter to do this 3 years ago, and he said, "Well, we need a traffic study," and I'm like, "I'll study it."
Out there with
I'll
your
let-
counter.
That's how that works. Yeah.
So he said you needed a study for a crosswalk, or was it for a stop controlled
It's
intersection?
one of the things that I heard, but I'm saying that maybe we just do what Caltrans does and just throw some paint down and see what happens.
So everybody can complain about us.
We
Yeah,
live on
not
the
a
coast.
bad
We
idea.
like, we like kind of getting things done.
Yeah, it's
Nancy,
an
Yeah.
did
intersection
you
that
have
could use-
another item you wanted to chat about?
Yes. Can you show me the improvements for Highway 92? Just curious, because I would like to ride my bike over Highway 92.
Yes, I remember you saying that the last time we met.
There are a few lunatics that would do that if it was
There
better.
are a few lunatics. I'm sorry, this map doesn't show it, but I can tell you that the proposal is wide shoulders, and
That's better than nothing.
Better than no
Yeah.
shoulders, which is what you got
I mean, I
now.
ride it now with no shoulders, so. Okay.
that's amazing. I guess, yeah, and something I'll say about any and all of these recommendations is, especially on a corridor like Highway 92, where there are a lot of constraints, a lot of considerations. The recommendation in the plan is a high level recommendation, and so it could be that when it comes down to making that improvement, whenever that that time may be, something beyond wide shoulders might be appropriate. I know, that I've heard, for example, could we put a path adjacent to Highway 92? And of course, that would be a lot more work, the environmental review would be a pretty lengthy process. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that further study is required for a lot of these recommendations. And so stay tuned. And we'll definitely be coming back to you when that further study is happening.
Awesome. Thank you for your answer.
And just one comment, Julia, on Princeton, and then I had a couple on El Granada. The one on Princeton was just, I was surprised, although I know Old Princeton Landing right now has outdoor seating in their parking spaces,
Right.
I think for COVID, but they do have a very big open area behind the building that they use. So I was wondering what you would recommend that they would do away permanently with their parking spaces, because there isn't much parking around there now.
Yeah, so happy to answer that.
Brian would love that. He has been fighting for picnic tables out front since he bought the place.
Okay, maybe it's because he wants it.
Yeah, no, he definitely would like it, and I think it's a great suggestion. We're finding down, and you can talk to Jalikas in Half Moon Bay. There are parklets. They had a parklet that they were suggesting for Cafe Society, and oh my God, the uproar about, oh my gosh, are you going to be safe sitting out on the street, you know? And so now I'm sitting at Sacrilege Brewery after our CERT hybrid training where we trained 100 people, and we have like
Thank
a
you
little,
for your service.
couple of little bamboo fronds that are attached to a couple of kegs that got water in them, and you could just feel the trucks and the buses go right by you. They're less than 3 feet away, and I felt okay, mostly.
Okay, so is it do away with the parking spaces because the owner would be very happy to do that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that it's called streeteries. Streeteries, that's what it's called. It was called that, you know, before COVID. I mean, Redwood City was going gangbusters on it. And I think, you know, COVID's not going to go away for a couple of years. You know, the fear factor, a lot of people are going to prefer to be outside. But it talks about there's no parking, biking, you know, stuff anywhere along Main Street. There's just, you have to put your bike up against a tree or something like that. So that's not your problem, Julia, but it's part of the larger picture of treating eating
Biking,
spaces.
yeah. That was just curiosity. And Granada, there are a couple things that I think are, one is a resident of El Granada. The long-term recommendation under A to reconstruct Portola with wider sidewalks, no objection, street trees, and narrower curb-to-curb street width. It was the narrower curb-to-curb street width, since I can't tell you how many times backing out of a parking space, I've almost been hit by somebody backing out of a parking space on the other side of the street. I would be concerned about the narrower street to street. With diagonal parking on both sides of the street, I would be concerned about making that too much narrower.
Okay, I'm just
Not many cars there in the picture, but sometimes there are a lot of cars there. And there are an awful lot of pickup trucks, you know, big pickup trucks that live in El Granada that seem to take up space in the street when they back out. My only other comment was on B. The Burnham Park draft plan actually would agree with the two crosswalks that you have at Obispo and Portola, but it actually envisioned three and a three-way stop there to calm traffic coming down Obispo.
Okay.
And extension of the paved off-road walkway all the way down to Coronado so that you could walk or bike off the road all the way down to Coronado.
Okay.
I'd be happy actually, Julia, to send you the updated draft of what the park would look like.
That would be wonderful. Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
not a done draft yet. Probably sometime in the first quarter it would go to the county.
Okay. So that'll be going to the Board of Supervisors as well.
I don't know where it stops in the county. I think it starts with planning and building first.
Sure.
Coastal program, RCD, environment.
Right.
All of it. It's only getting its first official move in the first quarter.
Right. Well, congratulations on all of that work. It's really exciting that things are progressing.
Hope so. Those were my only two things I highlighted on the draft there.
Okay, great. And Nancy, can I ask, did you include those comments in the draft plan by chance on the website, or is this
which comments?
the comments that you've just related to?
Oh, no.
Okay. Great.
That went by me. I didn't see that. I didn't see the draft plan on the website.
Oh, no problem. Wonderful.
Any other comments for Julia? I think it's,
Yes, I did.
I thought you might. Go ahead, Pat.
Okay. Julia, thanks for all your hard work on this. Couple of areas of concern, interest. And I wasn't really sure from looking at your plan, maybe I missed it, but Montera North through Devil's Slide, probably the most dangerous road for bicyclists in the area. What are your plans for that? Is something more than just widening the shoulder?
So yeah, you're talking about on Highway 1.
Yes.
Yeah, we took direction from the Caltrans District 4 bicycle plan, which includes, for that portion anyway of Highway 1, which includes a shared use path, which is a class 1 facility from, county line to county line. So that's the recommendation there.
So that would be, how much wider would the shoulder be, that shared use path? How wide would that be?
If I'm not mistaken, a shared use path is anywhere from 8 to 12 feet. That's typically used for cyclists and pedestrians. I think this is another great example, Patrick, of a segment, especially of Highway 1, that really would require, I hate to use this term, but further study, just given that there are a lot of constraints there. Cliffs and, mountains, cliffs on one side, mountain on the other, sort of hilly portions. And so we'd have to look into that further. But I know that it's, I'm heartened by the fact that it's included in the Caltrans District 4 bike plan, that this is something, that they've identified. And I think it would also function as a portion of the California Coastal Trail. And so there are, multiple agencies that are actually also, because, and I'm not sure what the status is now, and I'm forgetting the name of the trail, but the trail that connects from Devil's Slide to Pacifica, is that
over the pass?
It's sort of a windy trail that goes, or it's from Pacifica, sort of the southern end. It'll come to me eventually.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
There was a planning process that just concluded.
Well, that, here in El Granada, Half Moon Bay, Miramar, we are sort of hemmed in on the north and on the east by dangerous roads to ride bicycles on.
Yeah.
And, you go any farther, I'd love to commute to work in San Francisco, but it's just not safe. I've almost been hit several times. And same with Highway 92. It's so busy, it's difficult and dangerous. Going south is great, typically, south of Half Moon Bay. The other intersection that I wanted to ask about was in Miramar. And I don't know if you have been made aware of all the discussions going on in Miramar about traffic issues, crosswalks, the coastal trail rerouting. There's petitions flying. It's a hot topic right now, to say the least. Yeah. And there's several people pushing for disabled access across Highway 1 from East Miramar to West Miramar. And so that is a really big issue. My personal choice is an underpass at Medio Creek, where there's an unofficial one right now that many people use. And to make that wide enough and official enough and high enough to where wheelchairs can get through would be an ideal fix, because we don't want to stop up the whole Highway 1 with stoplights. So that, and the bridge over Medio Creek, which is currently the coastal trail, is closed right now because the bridge deteriorated. Right. And that there's a big push. There's a petition with over 50 signatures on it of local residents wanting to replace the bridge where it is right now instead of having it come out to Highway 1, which is the current detour. And that goes through county land as well as city land. So those are, those are two really hot button issues for me right now. Highway 1 would be my number one priority in all the things that I've seen, as well as underpass on Highway 1 in Miramar.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I remember, I think it was at the last MCC meeting that Michelle, were you sharing something? Or was it at our virtual ATP meeting? Now I'm forgetting. But about that sort of de facto underpass that's being used today. So I've been meaning to go and check that out. So yes, thank you, Patrick, for sharing those priorities. I think, the Connect the Coast Side plan will be addressing sort of that topic of crossings of Highway 1 in a more detailed way that our plan will be, just given the scope. The geographic scope is much smaller, and they're looking at all modes, including vehicle traffic.
Who would have priority in that planning process, to connect the coast or your planning?
So it's not a matter of priority. We're collaborating with the planning department, and we're making sure that our recommendations are consistent across the plans. But I think that more detailed recommendations surrounding specific locations for crossings and so on would be found in the Connect the Coast Side plan. Does that answer your question?
Thanks.
Sure.
Hi, can I speak, Fran Pollard?
Yep, go ahead, Fran.
I'm looking at the El Granada portion again. I remember Lenny saying how dangerous that fork in the road there, where Alhambra and Obispo Road come together, right by the Burnham Strip there.
Yeah.
So something has to be done to make that safer somehow.
On your map, Julie, I'm just trying to get back to. It's not. It's actually on your big map, but not on this map. It's farther.
Got it. Right.
At the left end of Obispo Road on yours, where it meets Avenue Alhambra. It's
right.
Almost a blind crossing across Avenue Alhambra if you come up Obispo and then need to get across.
Okay.
Because there's no sidewalks after that, so people tend to cross, but it's not a highly visible one as people come down the hill and around the curve. But I think my
cars, bicyclists, and people crossing, they all come together there. And
I think it could benefit from a marked crosswalk, just so that people attend to looking for pedestrians who are waiting to cross.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you, Fran.
Any other feedback or comments? Julie, what did you say was the short, when you say short term on the recommendations, what's the time frame for short term?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't have the greatest answer for that. I think it all depends on the availability of funding and coordinating these improvements with our Department of Public Works. And I mean, I think the goal would be, typically when we say short term, we're referring to 5 or 10 years.
Okay, that's good. I just had no idea whether it's 1 or 5.
Yeah.
Julie, I have one other comment. At the Obispo Portola intersection, if the district were to acquire the fire station property and turn that into a community center, the temptation would be for people to go right across the road directly from it instead of crossing over Portola and then going on that proposed crosswalk, which is southwest of that intersection. I don't know if there's any consideration for having another crosswalk directly, what would be west of the fire station, the current old fire station.
Okay.
That might be a consideration.
Yeah, by the O and Obispo Road on your map.
Right. Yeah, and Nancy, that's what you were referring to earlier as well, right? That's reflected in the latest draft of the Burnham Park plan.
The park plan envisioned a three-way stop there.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Excuse me, Julie, I have a question.
Sure.
If we're proposing a three-way stop at that intersection, would that not also include crosswalks?
Yeah.
I mean, automatically, right?
The park plan says both. It says stop sign and crosswalk.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everybody for your feedback this evening and for making the time to receive an update about the plan. Appreciate you all. And I'll be sure to let you know when we're bringing this to the Board of Supervisors.
That would be great.
Great. Thank you, Julia.
Thanks, Julia. Thanks for making time for us.
Thank you
Sure
very much.
thing. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Okay. I'm going to see, we're going to move on to our penultimate item, which is checking on any advice regarding the Quarry Park pump track for the board. The way that we will do this is just, I'm going to see if I can share my screen and put up, I think I can do it. There we go. Okay, now let me get it into a slideshow. Well, I'll leave it at that. Let's see if I get it into a slideshow first. We'll have just a quick discussion around the table for PAC on our first impressions or any things we'd like to discuss about the pump track for our board advice. And sorry, I'm just trying to get to my PowerPoint. Oh, I can't. No, I can't. And then I'll open up for public comments. And then we'll discuss and develop a motion. Sorry, I'm popping around trying to get my screen here. Pat, I did find on the Quarry Park Master Plan website, they have the video of last Wednesday's meeting hosted by San Mateo County Parks and a presentation of the pump track. So this is, I opened their presentation. This, I think, Rick can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Flying X version was the most popular.
Yeah, that's what the bike community liked the most.
Okay.
Like 97%.
Like I said, it was the most gratifying voting all week.
Where did you say you found the video? Because I couldn't find it.
Google, and I didn't find it when I looked on Monday. I just found it 5 minutes before our meeting. But if you Google Quarry Park Master Plan.
Okay. No, I put an email because I couldn't find the video, and I have a feeling he made a call and he put the video up. So I'll post it tomorrow.
Well, one of the things that I noticed when I went back looking for it and looked at the meeting invitation was there was a line on the bottom said, you know, as part of the Quarry Park Master Plan, which made me go look at the master plan tonight.
Okay.
Because they are and I'll see if Nick is back on, good. Because that made me like rethink something. Barbara, Director Dye and I had been discussing whether we needed to invite or create a space for more kind of community or neighborhood input. And when I saw it in the context of the Quarry Park Master Plan, one of the challenges of not having had a Quarry Park Master Plan meeting in 2.5 years is people forget what the process was and how many meetings there were and so on. But there were, I think, 4 public meetings, 3 of which I attended, which did include pump track and pump track location, and included discussions of parking and kind of all the amenities there. So my impression is that from the parks point of view, they have done outreach in the community because it was part of the process that they were going through 2016 to 2018. But we'll see what the comments that we have tonight and feed to the board. The board's discussion next week is, I believe, on funding for the pump track and moving along the discussion with the county on how to fund, how much to fund, and so on. So I did ask all the members of the PAC to try to go to the meeting last week. All of them except Pat were able to attend, and I did see them at the meeting. So I thought first we'll just go around to the PAC members and raise any concerns or thoughts you have, and then we'll get our public comment, and then we'll discuss advice to the board. So I can see some of you on the list here. Michelle, why don't I start with you since you're at the top of my screen there?
I don't have any concerns. I know Fran had some concerns about parking, and I think on the email chat that we just, I think it was Pat that suggested we put 2 more parking spaces in just to respond to the neighbors, and then build in this idea that we'll review it based on actual use once it's opened. So I hope that will be acceptable to the neighbors.
Okay. Next person I see down is Rick. Rick, I know you responded to Pat's.
Yeah. Howdy. Hey, yeah, I think the county stated very clearly, Nicholas did a great job in the last meeting, letting the neighborhoods know that parking is a concern of theirs and they will address it. And we have, great feedback. I think the 4 pump track or the 4 master plan meetings that have taken place parking's been brought up in every single one of those. So I really don't think GCSD needs to concern themselves with parking inside the county park there. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I believe the county has stated they intend on handling this situation with the neighborhood themselves.
Pat?
Yes, I like the design, what I've seen. And I've always been a strong supporter of this, so it's nice to see it getting along this far. In regards to parking, I think that's a secondary issue, but still an important issue. Living across the street from a park, a small parking lot that fills up by 10 o'clock in the morning, and then they park all over the neighborhood. I have a sensitivity to that as well. So I don't see the harm in putting in something like a suggestion that they consider additional parking. I don't see that as being counter to our main proposal, which is a pump track. And I see it as being reasonable consideration for neighbors who do occasionally have overflow coming into their neighborhood.
Fran, did I get, for some reason my thing isn't there.
Okay, well, yeah, I wish it was further back, closer to the pond. That's one thing. I hate ruining that pretty meadow. It's probably one of the nicest spots on the coast. And, we worked hard to save that, to preserve it. So, but that's it. If it's going to be there, definitely we need more parking. I've been after the county for adding parking for years now, for the additional parking. And then once that goes in, we're going to need even more. I mean, we're inundated with cars all the time on good days. Our entire neighborhood is surrounded with cars. So, yeah, I wouldn't settle for 2. I'd say let's put in as many as they think they can accommodate. And the drainage, I guess they spoke to that they're gonna take care of the drainage, so it doesn't wash down on the community. if we ever have another storm, that is. And I don't know. I guess that's about it.
I was thinking about the parking, because I know on particularly nice weekend mornings, it's the hikers and bikers parking. If there's 3 birthday parties at the same time,
Yep,
then we're inundated, even if there's no hikers and bikers there.
that's right.
It-
There's so
it's-
many activities going on now in there that just bringing this one more thing, which is going to be quite a big activity. We definitely have to do something to protect the neighborhood somehow.
My only,
I wish there was another way in and out. That's the problem. That everything has to funnel through this street.
to get into 800 acres of park, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thought I had was, you may remember when Matt Hogan across the street from you was building his pump track. You and I were on your porch, and he came over, and of course it was new. There were about 20 kids there and cars all around the corner. And he said, but this is like kids, and in 2 weeks it won't be new anymore, and we won't have the crowds. And I think that did come to fruition. There are now maybe 3 or 4 kids there. And so hopefully most of the kids who ride here will ride their bikes there. My one thought to add, Rick, I don't know if this was on the plan, was there will be adults who ride their bikes who are not up for the pump track, but they ride with their kids. So in addition to picnic tables, you might want bike racks so that they're not just all over the lawn. If they ride up just to watch, because I might even ride up just to watch. But other than that, I certainly wouldn't object to, encouraging the Parks Department to consider kind of a parallel project with parking, or very soon after, or to even just start tracking the parking so that you can see what is driving it and when it's driving it, and how much congestion happens there. But it's a fair point that there's only, for hikers, bikers, playground people, birthday parties, pump track, and dog walkers, there's only one way in. And a lot do drive in. Let me open up, since we've gone all around PAC, to, I know we've got a couple guests, it looks like, with this. Any other comments from members of the public?
Can I comment?
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to suggestions to the county for parking. Contingencies or caveats, I would be strongly opposed. Anything that would slow down the process, but suggestions by all means would be, no objections from my point of view as far as suggestions.
Yeah, it was a caveat saying we won't fund unless you add parking that you would object to. I think probably from what I heard from the parks, they would too, because they committed to ring fence this project and drive it. So if that would slow it down, I think they'd probably object too. Any other public comments? Feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to comment.
Yeah, hi, this is Nicholas Calderon with the County Parks Department. If I may,
sure.
Appreciate hearing. I just really appreciate the opportunity to hear what everyone said, and the department is committed to addressing the parking concern, and I do genuinely believe that what we're after here is to make a community asset and a community resource, and something that the community can easily access and use. And I said this the other night, we're not interested in making a regional destination. We want to make an awesome facility for people to use in the area. Not to say that others from outside the area may not use it. What we know is that people from all over the Bay Area come to the coast to visit the coast, and so I'm sure some people will make their way over there. But if parking becomes an issue or is an issue, we obviously are dedicated to addressing that, and we've stated as much through our master planning process, and we'll be committed to doing that. And Fran and I spoke yesterday and on this very issue, and we'll be meeting in person next week, and so it's something that we will definitely look into. But we as a department are really excited, not just for this project, but for a really awesome opportunity to partner with GCSD on making a longtime dream of the community really become a reality.
That's great. We really appreciate it. We really couldn't find any other place to put it. But Nick,
Yeah,
thank you for making the time to join us tonight. We really appreciate you being here too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if I could actually, one last thing I'd just say is I appreciate all the leadership and support that you all have had on this project as well. I think that's one of the things that really makes it truly a community project and asset. And so I appreciate your involvement to date. I appreciate your continued involvement, and looking forward to bringing this through.
Great. Thank you, Nick. We don't have any further comments. I think,
Nancy,
yes.
if I can ask Nicholas, what is your perspective of the time frame for possible construction of the pump track, or at least getting it narrowed down?
Yeah, so we can't start construction until after April due to grading regulations. So we fully anticipate that when May comes around, we have all of our plans and specs adopted by our board, and we have our contractor on hand, and we're ready to get going. So that's kind of our rough time.
And will that will the pump track tie into any other trails in Quarry Park?
Physically or from a programming perspective?
Well, from a physical perspective, are you going to have links other than what's there now?
No, not at this time. And I don't see that that's how this track or this skills trail would function. The reason I asked physically or programming is what this pump track really is the San Mateo County Parks Department dipping its toe into mountain biking, right? We have pretty restrictive mountain biking rules. I guess this is really more like us jumping in the deep end more than anything, but I fully anticipate that what we will have happen is when we're done with this project and had the opportunity to really become more familiar with the mountain biking community and what other opportunities there are for partnering, we will likely end up with future trails in the area that accommodate mountain biking, but none that physically connect to the pump track or the skills.
Okay.
It wouldn't make sense to have people coming in as a pass through. This wouldn't be something that you would go through anyways. It would be fenced off.
Yeah, and especially coming down from the quarry, you'd be coming downhill, which means you'd be hitting that with some serious speed.
We generally in the mountain bike community have a motto of we don't ride down the roads. The roads are only 2-track up, single track down. So we never go down the fire roads because that's dangerous, because that's where the hikers are. If you walk in Quarry Park, you'll notice you rarely see mountain bikers going down. They only go up for some reasons, because they go down the single tracks in the bushes and you don't see them. They always climb up the fire roads, because the fire roads are actually really dangerous going down because they're just loose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question of Nicholas.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Nicholas, looking at that, I'm wondering, is there going to be, I hope there'll be one way in and out of there so that the bikers aren't all going across the meadow, because that'll just ruin the meadow. So will there be off the road, one way in and out?
There may be multiple access points, but they will be designated access points, meaning it's not going to be a free for all. So there will be, say there's 2 access points, there would be very specific paths that people would take to access it. So it wouldn't be a free for all, and that whole area wouldn't be.
And they wouldn't be allowed to be riding all over the meadow.
No.
Okay, they have to use the road and then the entrance into it.
They would have to use the designated paths.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would compliment actually the design group when a few weeks, I think our September meeting, Steve Hawk joined us and gave some comments on the skate feature that we're looking at for Burnham Park. And one of his comments was when you have community input, it tends to be the experienced people who get their way on the feature, say, you know, a skate feature. And it's the people who are beginners or novices or little kids who don't get a feature. So I thought it was great that you had the beginner trail, the more experienced trail, and then the skills building trail. You know, all three of those really make it a broad demographic that can use it. I thought that was really, really thoughtful.
Absolutely, and that really plays into what we've been saying from the from the beginning, which is we want a family-friendly, welcoming feature that anyone can access and use.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, the design committee consisted of quite a few grandparents and people with young children and some seniors themselves that wanted to ride it as well. I mean, we had some very expertise as well, but we also made sure it was a very diverse group of experienced riders.
I thought the meeting last week was good. There's some people disappointed that there weren't some of the more, I don't know what you would call them, expert or aggressive features. But Rick, I thought you said it when you said ultimately you choose from the menu that you're given. And this is the first experience for parks, but I think you're making a robust experience for your first experience.
And they're piles of dirt. They can grow in time if the community grows and if the needs grow. You know, if things need to be more technical, that's a conversation with the county later on as they become more comfortable. Like Nick said, they don't really have much experience and they have pretty restrictive mountain biking historical rules. So I think it's just a matter of the community building trust and going forward.
Okay. Do we have any other comments before we move to Pat? You almost formed a motion when you gave your first comment, so I might come back to you. Do we have any other discussion before we formulate what we'd like to say to the board?
I'd like to motion that they fund it.
Yeah, I think you know, the gist of the motion is that we're recommending that the board goes ahead with funding and aligned with that, ask the county to really look at and consider improving the parking.
Sounds like a good motion to me. I'll second that, if that was a motion.
Okay. I don't know, am I allowed to make motions? The chair never makes the motions. But I'll make the motion. Let's move that the board fund as offered the pump track, and not as a caveat, but please ask also that the county considers improving the parking as soon as they can do it. We'll word it a little more elegantly than that.
Yeah, I think
well,
it is our fiduciary responsibility to spend those tax dollar wires wisely.
Well, speaking of which, I probably shouldn't say this in front of Nick, but we, you know, have been accumulating since about 2016 some of the property tax that we get toward parks, and you know, now it's about $500,000 a year that we're putting in, and of course that needs to be the basis for our funding and financing of Burnham Park and potentially a community center. But we have been collecting that money for about 5 years now and have spent very, very, very little of it. First couple of years, I think it was only $200,000 a year going into our coffer. So I think Barbara told me that Nick committed it would not cost more than $100,000. But so that would be, you know, 20% of what we're putting away this year. So I think that we could reasonably wouldn't cut into our park and community center funds. Any other discussion?
well, I just want to say that they've been saying, the board has been saying they're not giving a blank check. So to say we're funding it, I don't think it's quite right. We're contributing something towards it as long as we're going to get some benefit for the community.
Absolutely.
Well, since I think that financial estimate that Nancy just gave indicates that we have $100,000 to spend. How about we do we give 100 grand and then the county, ours is not to exceed 100,000. The county picks up whatever the difference is.
They are actually paying for all the permitting and design. So the only thing that will come to us is construction. I think the board will sort out if they want to put a cap on no more than X.
Okay.
Actually,
I think
they're doing all of the infrastructure, all of the picnic tables, fences and benches and signage, and
Right.
the water lines as well. So
Is
we're just doing dirt.
Mario and Trini the
I
contractor?
believe we are just doing dirt.
And is that Mario?
No, we haven't chosen a contractor. There are several local contractors that are interested.
Okay. I
But
know Metrofolio was also interested too. Cool.
come again?
Metrofolio, I think they were also interested.
And I keep hearing that, or I kept hearing that they were all willing to do it for free. So I don't know why we have to spend 100,000. We got a lot to spend on Burnham Strip too.
None of them were willing to do it for free.
Well,
Wages and
I
fuel.
hope not 100,000.
100,000 is probably about a third of the overall cost of this track.
Mm.
Yeah, I think we had volunteers who said they would do it for free, but the county with their insurance and rules and so on could not make, I think that this
There was a lot of citizens that wanted to do it for free, but they weren't comfortable.
they weren't comfortable doing it with volunteer labor. They needed somebody who was licensed and insured and
Well, I
bonded.
thought they were professionals, so.
No,
They
it
don't
was-
have the license and insurance and stuff like that.
Yeah. Two.
Michelle, were you the one who seconded the recommendation?
I was.
Okay, thank you.
And Claudia, I'll clean up the language. I was just trying to do that. Recommend to proceed.
Yeah, we can do that when I'll send the minutes over to you.
Okay. And consider parking.
Hey, Nick, are you still there?
To the best of my knowledge.
Okay, good. That was it. No. Do you have any further numbers or anything? Or are you able to present to the GCSD board about final numbers of your proposal?
Not at this time. We don't have those estimates, but I do want to be clear. 100,000 is what we've never asked for a blank check. We always felt that 100,000 was a reasonable amount, and we can get a fair amount of this work done for that amount of money.
Yep.
Especially given that we'll be able to do certain things in house, the rail, the benches, that kind of stuff. But we've always been asking for 100,000.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then motion then to recommend to proceed with the funding proposal and to consider a review of parking as well. And so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I think I'm going to abstain.
Okay, that was going to be my next one.
Because I don't like the everything in one proposal.
Okay, thanks, Fran. So 4 aye, 1 abstain. With that, we'll move on. I think our next item is just to consider, this is our last meeting for this year, consider meetings for next year. I'll let you know, Barbara has asked me to think about the structure of PAC, so they haven't moved, sorry, Barbara, I just looked at the chat. We haven't moved to replace me on the Parks Advisory Committee. It's having some discussion about doing a check step on the size of the committee and the structure of the committee and the focus of the committee, and want to engage all the PAC members in that. And so we haven't talked exactly about how we're going to do that, but it might be me coming around and asking each of you, one-on-one, what you think. so that we give the board some advice on how we think they could be using PAC better and more effectively, given what the agenda forward is mainly recreation, Burnham Park, and potentially community center.
Nancy, what is the time frame for you most likely to be inaugurated into the board and off PAC?
December, the December, like my term would begin with the December board meeting.
Should we be starting the discussion about, you know, I'm not volunteering, but I'm just saying we should probably, since there will be the, I guess as vice chair, I would lead the next year's first meeting, or is that probably what's going to happen?
I think that's the way it would go. So when the chair is not there, the vice chair leads the meeting.
Okay.
Last year for scheduling, we did lay out, tried to do something that was a bit more regular, and I think it was February, May, August, and November, and something like the second Tuesday of every month, just so that we get quarterly meetings on the schedule. But Pat, I don't know if you know, if you're teaching in the spring, or if you're not teaching, you're traveling, I know.
Nancy, could we possibly have a doodle poll or something like that to see how what the general availability is? Like Tuesday night, I teach a class.
Yeah.
So I can't do it on Tuesday night. So maybe we could narrow this down and have a much more efficient identification at times.
Yeah. If you know how to do a doodle poll.
Sure.
That's fine with me.
Sure. I'll do that.
Okay. But I think just we should try to get at least quarterly meetings on the schedules, just so that they're in the calendar. And we can check if we ever get to go in the meeting room again.
Aren't we doing Mondays right now? Is that right?
We were doing Mondays.
Because of the
This fall, I think Pat's teaching Mondays and Tuesdays.
days, right? And I think Mondays conflicts with a lot of doesn't conflict with a lot of other meetings like the MCC.
I think it does.
No, MCC's is Wednesdays.
Yeah, the MCC is Wednesdays.
And board is Thursdays.
The only meetings on Mondays are Sewer Authority Midcoast.
And some of the CERT meetings I know, but that's my CERT meeting, so I won't be there.
It could be a Thursday though, and a week or so before the board meeting.
It's going to be before the board, should be 2 weeks before, because usually if you send something to the board, you need a few days to put it together.
Yeah,
And that
But
hits the deadline.
that doesn't rule out a Thursday is what I'm saying.
Yeah, right. It could be first Thursday.
So Nancy, you're saying the first Thursday?
Yeah, because the board is third Thursday. So if you wanted to do something to send to the board, doing it 2 weeks ahead.
Okay.
You need at least 10 days ahead.
I would vote against Thursdays. I have a commitment Thursday nights, but
Okay. Sounds like, Pat, you need to do your doodle poll.
Need to do the Google poll.
Okay, then if we don't have, we'll let Pat go forward with sorting out the scheduling then for next year. And with that, we are finished our agenda. So we have a motion to adjourn.
Well, did we decide on a night?
No, Pat's going to send out a survey to everybody, see what's the best.
Otherwise, I agree with Michelle that probably Monday night's the only night that there isn't a lot of meetings. Wednesdays and Thursdays are pretty crowded.
Yeah.
Tuesday also. So it'd be Monday or Friday.
And not Friday.
I remember this conversation last year. It sounds exactly the same.
Yeah.
We did it on Monday for the same reason. So
Yeah.
but put out the doodle poll. We'll see what happens. Never know. I like polls.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Okay. I think we got a second from Pat,
Yes.
and I'm sure everybody's in favor. Thank you.
Happy holidays, I hope.
Joining with your moving
Wow,
boxes.
holidays. Jeez, yeah.
Well, holidays. Still
Good to see you
sheltering.
again, everybody. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thanks, guys.
Happy
Bye.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
happy Veterans Day.